Darby Lovell waited until her third daughter, Molly, had finished waving from the train. She then walked across the near-deserted waiting area of Pretty Beach train station, smiled briefly and said hello to a staff member coming the other way, and made her way to her car. Once safely out of the station, but battered by a freezing, cold-biting wind, she crossed her fingers and pressed the button on her key fob. Saying a silent prayer, she looked up at the sky for a second and hoped her car, or old banger, as she referred to it, would start. Luckily for her, it didn't let her down. Thank goodness for that. As it started, she let out a sigh of relief, pressed the clutch in, and putting it into gear, she tapped the steering wheel as if saying thank you to an old friend. The relief of not being stranded in freezing temperatures on New Year's Eve in the car park of Pretty Beach train station prompted Darby to let out a ginormous sigh, and brought something else with it too. Something that had been bubbling under the surface for months. It was far from pleasant. Swallowing as she felt herself get, a very sudden, very horrible, very emotional fizz in the bottom of her nose, she tried to remain in control. She'd kept the fizz at bay all over Christmas, along with her jolting up and down emotions. She'd been strong, contained, and had performed, as ever, for the family, always being the adult as she'd always had to. Now she was on her own, and her tight grip on performing happy mum duties had waned, and fast. Swiftly following the bottom of the nose, fizzing, a prick at the corner of her eyes made itself known, and a lump appeared in the back of her throat. A bubble of emotion in her chest. Not great. At all. Driving very slowly, things were not good. Not trusting herself or her emotions whilst in control of an old banger, Darby pulled over not far from the ferry wharf and sat watching a ferry come in. Around her, Pretty Beach sparkled in a layer of frost. On the roof of the ferry cabin, along the top of the railings running along the side of a calm, inky dark sea, kissing the lighthouse in the distance, and along the top of the clock tower to her right. Darby tried to let the beautiful sight of Pretty Beach cheer her. It didn't really work. Before she knew it, she turned the engine off, slumped back into her seat and burst into a flood of tears. The gates had opened and oh my, how they let the tears flow from deep within. She just about made it through Christmas, and without a doubt, it had been a lovely time, but now it was over. She was low, so very horribly, disgustingly low. The lowest she'd ever been, which was saying something because, for sure, Darby Lovell had had some low points in her life. Plus, there was more. It felt as if there was no possibility of ever coming back. A new year loomed, and the worst thing was that she couldn't give a stuff. About trying not to be low, about staying upbeat, about trying to be okay, about anything. For all she cared, as the fresh new year made its way in, it could take a running jump. She might do the same too. Tapping her head on the steering wheel a few times, she tried to somehow quell the flood of emotion that had engulfed her after watching Molly leave. Her attempts, however, were futile, and deciding to just roll with it, she howled. Oh, how she howled. She'd learnt a few things about grief over the years, especially when her mum had suddenly passed away when she was 19, and the best thing she'd done was to give in to the feelings if and when they'd arrived out of the blue. She'd always told her 3 girls to do the same too, letting emotion, tears, and downright sorry for herself woefulness sabotage every single little part of her. She sobbed. Like every single little part of her participated in the howling, and boy, was it not pretty. From the hairs on her head to the tips of her toes, every part of her being seemed as if it were crying, sobbing, snivelling, sobbing, shivering, blinking and sniffing, a heap of patheticness. She almost felt as if she was outside her body looking down. The creased-up woman in the front seat wasn't a pretty sight, just so very lonely, woeful, and definitely 1,000,000,000% sorry for herself. What went deep, she felt she had the right to feel sorry for herself. For once in her life, The crying was not attractive, if crying ever could be. Her sobs not the sort of delicate little puffs you see in films when the heroine is sad. The ones where the movie star's makeup remains in situ and she stays in control as tiny little streams of perfectly formed tears stream down the sides of impeccably blushed cheeks, where mascara remains on lashes. This wasn't movie star crying, or even Netflix level crying. Oh no, it was real girl sitting in a freezing cold old banger of a car desperate crying. Long, big, heavy, ugly, snotty crying. Throw in some gasping, lots of shoulder heaving, and deep self-pity thrown in for good measure. Add a bit of amateur dramatics via a crumpled up face. Very ugly, messy, not at all pleasant. Quietly, deliciously cathartic. A long time coming. After letting the crying completely engulf her, Darby Lovell tried to recover herself, but didn't find it an easy ask at all. Frantically looking around for a tissue in her ginormous basket, eventually the sobs began to subside all of their own accord. Changing from huge gulps of garbled air and strange noises to little pops and hiccups, she gathered herself together a little bit. Not able to find a tissue, she tutted. Nothing in her pocket, nothing in the centre console, and nothing in her gigantic basket on the front seat. Flicking the button for the glove compartment to see if some long-lost tissue in there would make itself known to her, she immediately regretted it. Groaning at forgetting that the glove compartment was broken, she heard a strange, forlorn, cow-esque wail exit her mouth as the glove compartment door dropped out of its slot on the left-hand side. It landed lopsidedly with a funny little squeak, and Darby rolled her eyes. To get it back in would require a fair amount of fiddling to make it fit back snugly in place. Now she'd have that to sort out too. The broken black plastic was like her life really. A bit forlorn, somewhat lopsided, definitely worse for wear, not in quite the right position, tired both in body and mind and all at odds with the world. Someone really needed to rejig Darby, that was for sure. Yes, that would be fantastic. Someone could jiggle and fuss with her until she too fit snugly back in place. Because absolutely, right at that moment, she didn't feel as if she fit anywhere at all. Rummaging around in the glove compartment, she found a long discarded, horribly plastic thin napkin, clearly left over from some terrible idea of getting fast food on a motorway somewhere. Opening it to its full width, she blew into it unceremoniously. Like the crying, it wasn't pretty nose blowing. No. Rather, the sort of nose blowing you do when no one is around. Not the gentle little poof of a nose blow when you were in company and thought that you might have something visible in your nostrils. More a big, fat, ugly hooter of a nose blow that when she heard it done by someone else made Darby shudder, like a foghorn in some forgotten coastal town. Exhaling a big blow of air, Darby tried to get a grip. What in the world had happened as she'd started the car after dropping off Molly? She didn't know, but it didn't bode well. Her head felt like a football that had been pumped and pumped and pumped and was about to explode. But it wasn't just that. It wasn't only that she was hormonal and tearful with an overfull, overinflated football head about to be kicked around at Wembley. She was sick of everything to her core. Not sick enough to make her stop eating to stop the spare tyre that was slowly creeping onto her middle. Just sick enough to constantly make her feel that all was not well in her world. As if everything around her was falling apart. As she finally stopped blowing her nose, and the sobbing had turned into an every now and then shuddering, she restarted the engine, put her car into reverse, swept her hair out of the way, looked over her shoulder into her blind spot and reversed carefully out of the icy, sparkling car park. At least it was a beautiful night. There was that. Pretty Beach, the little coastal town she'd moved to 5 years before, doused in an ever so barely there sprinkling of frost, had nipped and tucked its way into and onto everything. On the old footbridge over the inlet near the wharf, on the branches of a gigantic Christmas tree, not far from the gate to the ferry, on the bonnet of her old banger of a car. Driving at a snail's pace through the icy town, Darby shivered and let the last of the crying ebb away into the sparkling night and concentrated on the road. There was no way she needed the expense of a car accident in her life. She had not the energy, money, time, or brain power to deal with her car getting crumpled. Every time she got into the car and it started without a hitch, she thanked the gods of mechanics looking down on her from above. She didn't know what she would do if her car gave up the ghost. After giving a small, little salute-type wave to a man in a flashy BMW who had generously pulled to the side to let her pass, she inched her way carefully, waited at a set of traffic lights, and managed to keep another round of wailing at bay. Driving through Pretty Beach to the Old Town, where the street lights were less and less frequent, she turned onto the street that led to her road and squinted to watch for black ice. With the world around her twinkling with frost, her nose feeling as if it might fall off from the cold, and trying to remain calm, she followed the bright beam of the headlights through the thick night air, hoping that she would get home without one, slipping on the ice, and two, having her overfull football head brain, in fact, explode. She clung to the steering wheel for dear life. Inching along, she attempted to look on the bright side, but failed. All she could think about was how almost everything in her life had changed. She'd moved to a completely different area of the country, her financial circumstances were dire, and she had very few friends, make that one friend. Her children were off doing their own thing. She had 3 serious and very failed relationships behind her, and she was living in a small town, wondering what was next. Most of all, Darby Lovell felt so very lost. Waiting for the heater to warm up, she mulled everything over as she kept her eyes glued to the road and the stretch of a new year pulled out in front of her. Yes, that was it. It was the new year looming that had tipped her over the edge of a cliff she hadn't even known she'd been balancing on. As Molly had left, and she'd realised yet again that she'd be spending New Year's Eve on her Jack Jones, she'd been hit by a tsunami of snivelling, snotty self-pity. Quite pathetic, really, for a 41-year-old woman who had a mostly okay life. However, the promise of another year rolling around was not shiny, happy, full of excitement or anticipation, as it was on the shows getting ready for the New Year parties on the TV. Not at all. For Darby, it just flagged up questions and emphasised that her life had ground to a bit of a halt. Up until that point, she hadn't had any choice in which way she went. Quite frankly, 3 children, 1 salary, 3 useless partners, and 1, death had not given Darby Lovell time to be low or to be worrying about which way she might go. She hadn't actually realised, when it had been there in her face every day, that the gift of having no time had been an unknown, unseen, good one. The ups and downs, lack of hours in the day, and keeping her head above water had very much kept her on the straight and narrow. Now, with her relationships gone, her children gone, her old home gone, her friendships gone, a bit of her felt as if it had gone too. Where, in the name of goodness, was she going to end up? Turning into a narrow cobbled street leading to her house, Darby smiled. At least the road looked pretty. There could be worse places in life to be low. Lovely, windy, cobbled pavements, where little terraced pastel, painted cottages butted right up to the road, a shop on the corner, a little cafe with the best coffee, a couple of detached Georgian villas squashed together, her next-door neighbour's 3-storey brick house, and then wedged in beside a narrow public bridleway come lane with a listed wall, just as the road turned to the right, was her house. As she parked in her small parking spot to the side and gathered up her things, she got out, gasped at the icy air, stopped for a second, and looked up. The moment she'd set eyes on her house, it had spoken to her, and now here she was 5 years later calling it her own. An odd shape with uneven bricks, beautiful old sash windows, a wind of wisteria, gorgeous old front door, funny little porthole window in the attic, and sweet cobbled paths to the side. Sighing, Darby swallowed. The house was supposed to have been a new start, a fresh, lovely place by the sea to bring her back to life. And in a way, it had been. She'd made a few acquaintances in Pretty Beach for sure. She'd found a little job and loved her new garden. But really, it hadn't been a new start. More what was looking like a dead end. At least, that's how it felt in her about to explode football head.